Hey, guys. Wow.
Wow.
Great to be here.
How was your lunch? Was it good?
Was it good? We were too nervous. We didn't eat. So, was it good?
Yeah, it was
All
good.
right.
All right. Okay, so we're current students, but this seems to be the way it works. For 4 years, we sit in classrooms in college and study what we want to eventually do with our lives. We study everything we can about a subject and learn as much as we can about how to succeed, so that one day, theoretically, in the hypothetical, distant future, on the day in which we finally enter that ethereal, mystical land known as the real world, we will be duly ready for our lives, walking paragons of collegiate skill, mentally and physically prepared to succeed.
Seeing this, the three of us, bored with our theoretically hypothetical lives, decided to actually do something. Something that we always wanted to do. Something that we didn't know how to do. We were gonna write a musical.
We had never written a musical before, nor had we ever taken any classes about how to write a musical, nor had anyone ever told us that it would be a good idea to dedicate our one summer trying to do what most professional writers generally take years and years to accomplish.
No one ever told us exactly how crazy this endeavor we were about to embark on actually was. So we never knew. Let's flash back to last year, March 2010.
The musical theater department here at the university was unable to find a suitable show for their November slot. We volunteered to write that Short of Please musical, and they agreed on the agreement that we would show them our musical in June.
Could we do that?
So, without a moment to spare, we got together in my bedroom at 609 East Ann Street, ordered some necessary cheesy bread from Pizza House, who are also sponsoring our TED Talk, apparently. And we got to work.
Deep in the middle of the bedroom, as the night was growing old, right here where the maze and the blue reside, our tale began to unfold.
Awesome! So look, we're writing a musical.
Hey!
Right.
Okay.
So, how does one write a musical? What do we need?
Well, we needed a story. Duh.
Yes,
Story.
a story.
Of course,
All right.
a story.
Step one, find a story. So, hit me with some stories, boys.
Oh, we were hoping you had a story.
I thought you had.
Thus went most of our march.
You wouldn't believe how many... It's true. You wouldn't believe how many astoundingly stupid ideas we had.
None of which need to be illuminated on this stage.
But amidst all the terrible ideas, I've been coming up with a story. It's about a woman who's racked with regret. So she escapes and goes out on the road. And while on the road, she flashes back through her life, coming face to face with her biggest joys and regrets.
I've been coming up with this story. It's about an orphan boy who winds up in the hands of many random families, none of who treat him as he deserves to be treated. And in his quest to find a home of his own, through a series of circumstances, he stumbles upon his deceased biological mother's diary.
Wait a minute. Allie, if we take your idea and combine it with his idea...
It's the story of a young little baby boy who couldn't help but roam, who couldn't help but wander around the states in search of home. Home.
We called the orphan boy Gibson, and thus Gibson Fleck was born.
We had our protagonist, our hero. And every hero needs a good chorus. So we wrote,
He was the boy without a name. Everywhere it was the same. He scoured through the country for an origin to claim. The boy without a home had a future set in stone. He knew it in his heart. One day he'd find a home.
Finally, we had an idea we liked, and more importantly, we had an idea that sang. Essentially, we mean the subject matter realistically justified the heightened emotion necessary to burst out into song and dance. Well, as realistically as humanly possible.
It's important to note that our barometers of judgment weren't based on anything other than how we felt about the idea. I mean, we all felt good about it. It spoke to us. It was the kind of story we'd like to go see.
But we had no idea why. And that's a scary thing to trust. The only way to determine if an idea was good or bad was to try it on for a while, explore its possibilities, give it credence, even if only temporarily.
But there was something very scary about eventually realizing that an idea you've been toying with has now been deemed irrelevant or useless. But
Also something quite thrilling, because it meant there was one less misleading possibility out there in the world, and we were one step closer to finding the real answer, like excavating a fossil.
Essentially, there are no right or wrong answers, but there are some stupid ones.
We just learned to throw those away. No choice but to keep moving.
Which ironically became a major theme in our musical.
We're getting there, we're getting there.
Sorry.
With Allie working on fleshing out our story, AJ and I started thinking about the music. We thought about how our story kind of sounded like a folk tale, so we filled our ears with the likes of James Taylor and Joni Mitchell, hoping to use some of that influence for the sound of our show and our story.
Now, Carlos and I had already collaborated once before, writing songs for an original musical that became somewhat of an internet sensation. Right? Wouldn't you say?
I would say so, yeah, but we're not bragging.
No, the album actually made it to the Billboard Cast Album Charts, debuting at number 11. We were thrilled.
Yeah, but not bragging. Not bragging.
The thing that actually thrilled us about Gibson Fleck is that we had never actually written a full score. One fully unified musical world with themes and motifs that repeat throughout the piece. But what did our world sound like?
And what did our protagonist, Gibson, sound like?
Well, we have a guitar-influenced score, so let's set ourselves in a guitar-friendly key. D major. Yeah.
Right, D major.
So we come up with a groove in D major. Does this sound like our restless wandering hero? Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya.
Okay,
Nope.
maybe not. So Gibson is what, 20, 21 years old? He's got some teenage angst going on. Let's put this in minor. Let's try it in minor.
Like minor key. Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's do it. Kumbaya.
Yep, I'm going to veto that one immediately and say that the audience isn't going to want to hear a guy complaining the entire show.
Okay,
fair.
all right, that's fair. But we need to meet somewhere in the middle. Okay, so why don't we take one of the chords from that minor groove and put it in our major groove?
All right.
Let's try that. I like that. Better. Yeah, it sounds more grounded, deeper, adventurous.
Yeah.
But it sounds a little too defined for our character. He's someone who hasn't really figured himself out yet.
Yeah. Let's throw this thing off kilter a little bit. I mean, Gibson
is a young, impatient male, and he wants his answer now. Yes. I like that. Okay, so why don't we syncopate the rhythm of the chords and anticipate the beat?
Okay.
Huh?
All right, I feel you. Yeah, that's better. Oh, you know what? You know what this needs? It needs to be faster.
Oh yeah.
2. I remember the call. It was ringing in my ears, and I felt I was getting closer. When the sound filled my head, it pushed away my fears, and I felt I was getting closer.
Great. We have a solid musical language for Gibson, but now we have another major character to deal with, Caroline, his mother. She has to sound very different. She is older, remorseful, penitent. The thought of reaching out to her long-lost son is her only respite from sadness.
So we came up with this, Caroline's theme. Cyclical, always reaching higher and higher for an answer. Eventually, this became the lullaby that Caroline sings to her newborn son as she holds him for the very first time.
Rest your head, rest your eyes, no more cries, go to sleep.
At some point in the song, we thought it would be nice for Caroline to sing over those same chords from Gibson's theme, as if she was the one who first put that music in his head. So as she sings the word sleep, we use those same 3 chords.
Sleep, sleep.
Those 3. So,
Great.
Now we have an idea for a story. And
the means in which to tell it best. So this leads us to
Writing it.
writing.
And a shameless plug. This involves long hours of plotting, planning, storyboarding, and janitors in Mason Hall rightly assuming that we were homeless.
It's true. We soon realized that a story or themes of profound loss, abandonment, and once-in-a-lifetime love weren't necessarily the easiest topics to tackle, especially for a first shot at writing a musical.
Everybody always says, write what you know. It's good advice, but it's tricky, especially when you're 21.
And it was frustrating at times trying to put ourselves into situations that we found very difficult to fathom.
But then again, some of our characters were frustrated.
And the long, sleepless nights, unable to get any rest while so many pressing issues were on our minds.
Actually, some of our characters couldn't sleep.
How do I possibly write a song about the frustration of not being able to resolve pressing issues in my life?
Like that, I suppose.
In this way, everything became mirrored in our art, almost helplessly.
What we figured out is that it's not so much writing what you know, as much as it is bringing what you know to something that you don't.
We also learned this. You already possess profound understanding. Just by being humans, you are already armed with two of the greatest powers in the universe, the power of observation and the power of empathy. Armed with that, there is nothing you cannot bring a small, honest part of yourself to.
Without even attempting to write what we knew, we were writing what we were currently feeling and learning.
While learning, we were somehow writing the answer.
Whoa.
That's when major progress started to get made. The best ideas came not from trying to say something or prove a point, but from looking at the piece, listening to it, and then trying to tell the most honest story possible.
By June, we had written 15 songs and close to 100 pages of script.
It was exciting. It was new. It was the honeymoon phase.
So now we edit it.
Honeymoon over.
We had written close to 4 hours worth of material.
In a few weeks of a very mature discussion, we had nearly started over. The heart of the story remained the same, but characters were being cut left and right. 10 songs were scrapped, 2 pages of the original 98 pages of script remained.
A blank canvas. How exciting.
How terrifying.
In our rewrites, we ended adding a major character, but not a person, a place. Vienna, Virginia, the birthplace of Caroline, Gibson's mother. Vienna needed to sound different than the previous world we had established, and we added it so that Gibson could leave home, only to realize that what he had left was the place he belonged. With new understanding, he could return. Vienna needed to sound old-fashioned, traditional. White picket fences, people with ideas.
Vienna. This world needs to sound different than the one we just established. We want to render the allure of a place through its proud history, while we simultaneously hint at a sense of danger and deception.
Essentially, we want you, the audience, to feel that our main character does not belong here.
We were struck with the idea of a waltz, something distinctly Viennese for all you smart folks out there. A waltz. Now, instead of composing our waltz in the distinguishable waltz pattern of 3,
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
we decided to write it in patterns of 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Lovely.
Notice how the 5 pattern automatically sorts itself into a pattern of 3 and then a group of 2. The 3 sound right, but the 2 sound different, like they don't belong there, off kilter.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. As you can see. Now, after that, once we had established the basis of our new character, Vienna, everything started to write itself. After this, the score just began to write itself. These basic themes, motifs, and progressions that we would work so hard to find and establish began to dictate the rest of the action and ultimately the remainder of our story.
So we continued to overhaul the show all throughout June.
And the verdict? The department said they'd produce our show.
We kept it on the sly exactly how much we were changing.
But with our names announced on the School of Music website and friends congratulating us on Facebook left and right, there was no choice but for us to finish the show. And for it to not be terrible.
Which leads us to step 5. No, of course.
No.
What we obviously mean is edit the show, orchestrate the show, cast it, get it on its feet, open it, and enjoy the results with grace and maturity, right?
Yeah, right. So now we panic.
Which is a natural and reasonable part of the
The
process.
show still needed orchestrations. The band consisted of piano, bass, drums, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, cello, violin. What were they going to play?
Unsurprisingly, with our track record,
We'd never orchestrated a show before.
Learning by doing, right, boys?
So we got to work.
With great results. I'm allowed to brag because I didn't write them.
Naturally, we edited the show up until the night that it opened.
I think our last notated orchestrations were handed to the band sometime around 10 p.m. the night before we opened.
Watching the show that night, surrounded by our first ever audience, was an incredible experience. It was nerve-wracking, painful, humiliating, naked, and downright wonderful.
But even as our proudest work was being performed on stage for a kind and receptive audience, often all we could do was cringe and think,
that needs to change.
But what we learned from seeing our work up on stage performed by some of the most talented people we knew was so much more informative and educational than anything a book could have ever taught us.
We were often very kindly told that what we'd achieved was far beyond our years or what anyone had ever dreamt us capable of. But in all honesty, the only reason we were able to tackle such a daunting task was because we were young, optimistic, and downright stupid enough to try.
If we had ever stopped to actually consider how truly crazy this entire endeavor was, I think we would have collapsed.
Yeah, the world would have definitely imploded in on itself.
We're sure of it.
But we were 21, still living under the wonderful delusion that we can take over the world. But maybe it's not entirely a delusion.
The tenacity and creative spirit required to make something worthwhile is the same now as it will ever be.
You're right to connect the dots.
Letting the idea lead you, unafraid of where it's heading.
You can't set limitations on yourself, least of all your work.
Limiting your work is the most disrespectful thing you can do to it.
And on a larger scale, limiting creative opportunity is the most disrespectful thing of all.
In many ways, we truly believe that a creative mind and sheer chutzpah should be valued as strongly as pen-to-paper intelligence. This wonderful gathering of minds has come here today in the name of encouraging crazy ideas. Well, we were very fortunate in that our crazy idea was picked up and supported by Linda Goodrich, our director, and the support of the musical theater department here at the University of Michigan.
Whereas many other brilliant ideas sit unseen in dusty hard drives across the country.
And despite our accomplishments and incredibly good luck, we're now back to step 4, editing, big time.
Creative works are, bear with me here, a lot like our orphaned protagonist, looking for a home and for people to treat them kindly with patience and care.
Our journey with Gibson Fleck is really just beginning.
We hope to find continued support for our creative work and self-motivated vigor, especially now that we really realize exactly how crazy this whole thing was.
The three of us are inseparably bound up with Gibson Fleck. Wherever it goes, so will we. Traveling the country with our little piece of art to call our own. Finding our own way and helping Gibson find his.
He was a boy without a name, everywhere it was the same. He scoured through the country for an origin to claim. The boy without a home had a future set in stone. He knew it in his heart. One day he'd find a home. One day he'd find a home. One day he'd find a home.